Welcome to Build Out with Jim Kunkel, your go-to broadcast for learning more about business in the real world. Your host, Jim Kunkel, who is an accomplished professional in business development, sales, and marketing, and is a technical content creator along with being a rising influencer on LinkedIn. On Build Out, you'll get the latest information and knowledge from subject matter experts from across the globe. Okay, let's get this Build Out broadcast started. And here's your host, Jim Kunkel.
I'm Jim Kunkel, and welcome to Build Out. Joining me today is Matthew Winkelstein from Engaging Perspectives. Matthew, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jim. I'm excited. You know, I've been a fan of yours here since I discovered you first on LinkedIn. Whenever I can catch a Build Out Live, I always tune in, and I at least catch the clips and some of your guests. So I'm honored to be on the other side of this today.
Well, I greatly appreciate that. For the viewers who might not know of you, if you could provide your professional background and talk a little bit about what Engaging Perspectives does in the industry.
Yeah. So, and I think it goes well together. So my history, I've been in construction now for about 15 years, power generation, and I'll give an abbreviated version of some of my history. I've run projects in the field. I've ran a global environmental health and safety team, and then I was in charge of director of strategic accounts and business development at about a $2.5 billion OEM in the power generation space. From there, I moved over to Kiewit as business development manager, focused on a specific region, but also at Kiewit looking at how do we sell digitally better. My boss over at Kiewit, who's a great leader, his name's John Gribble. When he was recruiting me, him and I talked a lot about this, about, hey, there's this opportunity here. You know, if you get over here, we can really explore it. And so when I got over to Kiewit, when I first got over there, I was really thinking of, hey, let's help them, elevate some of their marketing stuff. They're already doing a lot of great stuff, but let's help them evolve their marketing to where it's actually a benefit to sales and where it matches more of where the customers are. And so when I first got there, I was really focused on that and just thinking about, hey, how do we improve this here? And then as time went on, and I had to learn how to do some of the stuff myself because frankly, our marketing team just didn't have the capacity. They have events, proposals, internal, external presentations, all the typical stuff that marketing is expected to do. So when we started talking about running ads on LinkedIn and thought leadership, they just were like, hey, interested, but don't have the capacity. So that time my boss said, hey, well, you're passionate about this. Why don't you take a run at this? And let's see if we can get this off the ground. So that was a couple years ago. And at that same time, I started an LLC called Engaging Perspectives. And when I started it, it was focused on, how do people talk to me all the time about have these ideas and, they'd like to hire me to do it, mostly small companies. Why don't I start this LLC and see if I can service some people and learn how to do this better for the big company that I worked for with some of these smaller companies. And so through the efforts with some of my clients outside of Kiewit and through what we were able to do at Kiewit, launching our first ever targeted ad program, launching the thought leadership program. If you follow Kiewit, especially engineering services, you'll see there's a handful of people that are posting content on a consistent basis. So through those efforts, I realized a couple things. I realized that the world is changing, and I thought it was already changed, but we're actually just in the early stages of this. And the other thing I realized is that if a company like Kiewit with the brand power that Kiewit has, if those companies are the only companies that adopt this and they're the ones that adopt it quickly, they're going to dominate the market even more than the way they did previously, because once they make a decision, they can just go, versus some of my smaller, medium-sized customers, it's, hey, we're trying to generate revenue as we go. So when I took a step back and looked at it, it's like, hey, there's a large opportunity here, not only from a financial standpoint to do this, but just to help people, to help these small, medium-sized businesses, to help professional services companies that see the market changing around them and just don't really know what to do. So that's when I really started to say, hey, what about Engaging Perspectives? I think this is more than just this one company. I want to see if I can service more. And so was fortunate enough to attract a couple of people that started on my team, and now that team's grown to 5 of us, and we're servicing companies in the professional services space that want to learn how to digitally engage with their customers better and potential employees.
Wow, you said that all in one breath.
Were you able to keep up, or was I too meandering?
No, that is perfect. And, and the thing when you had really kind of keyed on this is an evolution that's really happening right now. We're at the beginning of great change. We coming out of the pandemic, the last 2 years really forced a lot of quick change on people and companies and how things were being done. And you remember traditional business with sales and marketing had this big chasm, this big divide, and they never seem to sometimes work hand in hand. And now we find ourselves right now in an amazing point in time where you have the digital that's really going to impact, to your point, revenue generation, but also profit opportunity. The small company, the medium-sized company, when they do have a realignment of sales and marketing and get into digital content and that engagement part you talked about, they have an opportunity now to compete with the big companies because it's all about capturing mind share. It's about delivering information and leading those customers and prospects down a logical path to arrive at a buying decision, and it makes it a commitment as well. And the great thing, I think that, when I've seen your content that you've done, you really highlight the importance of ongoing content that is dynamic and also engaging, because what it does is it helps keep that mind share with those individuals who are, once they buy from you, you know this, and most people in business know this, you lose a customer, it's hard to get them back. But once you have their mind share and their thoughts and everything, they will be as loyal as possible with you. It's up to you really to give up on that relationship. When we're talking about a realignment of sales and marketing, what are some of the challenges still today of pulling those together when it comes to a realignment?
I would say one of the biggest ones, and then if you don't mind, I actually wrote something out here just because I wanted to make sure I got the stats correct. Mm-hmm. I would say the first thing is your marketing folks have to start to learn your customer. The days of marketers just being order takers, it may still be here, but it's not the way to be effective. If the only information your marketing team has about your customers is from your sales team, if they even have that, how can you expect them to produce customer-facing content? They can't. And so I know that this is about sales and marketing alignment. I think that's extremely important. Mm-hmm. But I think even before you get into sales and marketing alignment, you have to get sales and marketing aligned with the way that customers want to buy today. And so I've been thinking a lot about this lately because it seems like there's a certain demographic age where people just get it. Like, yeah, we obviously need to do this. This is the way people do things. This is the way it's headed even more. Then there's this chasm with a certain age group where it's like, that doesn't make sense. We've never had to do that before. And, like in a large company like Hewitt, why would you change when you're already successful? Like, unless there's a compelling reason, we're doing well. Why would we change what we're doing? So that had me thinking a lot about, like, am I wrong? And so am I not understanding this correctly? And I dug into the data to try and understand. And I think I found something that everyone will find it's interesting. So according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median age of a U.S. manager is roughly 46. Roughly half of managers are under the age of 44, and roughly a quarter of managers are under 35. That realization opened my eyes a lot, and I'll explain why. So I've always noticed that age is a strong indicator of how well you get this. Some older people get it, some people don't. I'm 36, so I'd probably be in the older category in most instances, but in this, I would be in the younger one. And so I looked at real world examples. So I know, I can call it a executive I'm not going to name that's in their mid 50s. And, they kind of represent that older group a little bit. And then I look at that compared to me, 36, which is at the lower end of what we just talked about. And how did I view things? And so I put together some stats that I think and just some interesting facts. So when the internet had 16 million users, or 0.4% of the world population, our 56-year-old manager, who was born in 1966, was 29 years old. In 2001, when they were 35, the age representing our younger manager, Google and Amazon were in their infancy, and 8.6% of the internet was on, or 8.6% of the world was on the internet. And so you can see this manager, you can start to understand why they think the way they think, right? So when they are the same age as I am, the internet is still really in its infancy. Now let's compare that to what I grew up with. So a 35-year-old manager, and I turned 40 days ago, so I can use this. A 35-year-old manager, when they were 18 and headed off to college, Amazon was 10 years old. So think about what that means. Amazon was 10 years old. eBay was almost 10 years old. We were already buying stuff online. Then you look at you look at not only that, you look at social media. So AOL and MySpace, we were already communicating with our friends. We were already posting pictures. We were already using that to communicate with people in a different city, in a different town than we have ever been to before. Then you look at what it was like on the research component. And so when you continue to move down that train, 12% of the world's population was on the internet when they started school. So now an 18-year-old, you can see, I've already been buying stuff online. I've already been communicating with my friends through social media, and I haven't even got out of high school yet. So all these things we're talking about, that's really the only life I know. I remember before home computers, but not really that well. I was under 12 years old. I remember I got my first home computer when I was 11, and I was late because I grew up in a poor family, but I was so excited when we got that. So now let's compare that with today. So today, me as a 36-year-old, 65% of the world is on the internet. So let that sink in, right? So not even 18 years ago, 12% of the world was on the internet. Now 65% of the world is on the internet. Every minute that goes by, 9,000 connections are made on LinkedIn. 500 hours of content are uploaded on YouTube, and 4.1 million search queries are made on Google. So you can start to understand where these bifurcations in understanding are. So if you're my age or younger, the only world you really know is digital. When we entered the work world was analog. And as a millennial, we have pushed it more towards a digital world. So all the generations that are coming behind that are going to continue to do that. But when you're talking to someone that's 56 years old and maybe isn't as plugged into this, you can understand why they don't see it that way, because they've never experienced life that way. But what's happened now is because the rate of change is so fast that if you didn't grow up in it, and even the rate of change today for me is fast, it's faster than when I was younger, but it keeps picking up. So if you're 56 years old, you're saying we don't need to really change like this. But if you're in your mid-30s, you're saying if we don't adapt, we're going to die. And so I think the first thing we have to look at is not only how sales and marketing are aligned, but how sales and marketing are aligned with customers and the way that they want to consume information.
Oh, those are great statistics. And by the way, I'm going to be 56 in May.
You're one of the outliers.
I am very much an outlier. I've been told that multiple times, sometimes in a positive way, and sometimes it could be taken in a negative way. But that being said, you're 100% on the money. And I think, the thing that I saw especially in the industry that I work in, digital transformation is very much behind. And we've seen a little bit of the resurgence of it going into the pandemic, because out of necessity, everyone was working from home. Now, all of a sudden, instead of having field presence, now you're having virtual presence. And that gave the birth of the opportunity really for these companies to say, okay, we need to immerse ourselves into this. But I haven't seen, at least in my industry, the continuation of that. So it's something that's lagging on our side. But and I know that when you have an alignment happening, teams that are aligned deliver really high impactful, marketing, the content, the communication, all the activities that go on. But that in its own right boosts the sales efficiencies, the effectiveness when it comes to revenue generation and profitability. And so you're out there, you're working with your clients, small, medium, and whatever size they are. When you deliver this message to them, how receptive are they more skeptical, or are they more open-minded and receptive to what you're telling them?
It does kind of bifurcate along those demographic lines.
Okay.
I will say that, I do have customers that are in their 50s, but that's not the norm.
Mm-hmm.
What I experience more is an executive that's at a certain level in that smaller company, and they understand it, and then they have to sell it up and convince someone else that, hey, this is why we need to do this. So it's really a mixed bag. But what I realized through all this is we are kind of early in this, or like we're at the earlier stages of this happening. So I really have taken the approach that I'm going to convince people through my content. If you don't believe, I'm not going to try and waste my breath convincing you, because there's no conversation I'm going to have that's going to do that. It's going to be a myriad of things and realizations and experiences they have that's going to bring them that conclusion that I never could in a meeting. So quite a few of them get it. But a lot of that is I interact with more people that are open-minded versus, a quick no is great for me. Understand, not interested. Hey, if you ever are, reach out to me.
Yeah. Not to say that I'm not an expert like you are on a lot of these topics, and this is stuff that you do day in, day out with your clients, and then also with the industry that you do typically, focus on and everything like that. What I've had, friends that have businesses, and sometimes with general conversations here on LinkedIn, the question always comes to me. There's all these analytics. I mean, you could drown in analytics and third party this and all that when it comes to looking at your data. And what I always tell people to do, really kind of focus on some core KPIs. And when we're looking at the sales and marketing, what are some of the ways to measure the effectiveness and the efficiency, and then also to the impact of it? And some of those KPIs that I like to say focus on is the first one would be the length of the sales, the sales conversion. What's the sales cycle that's involved? I think you have, I know you've talked about this in the past on some of your posts where, digital today, when we're looking at sales that are generated because of digital activity, it really does help to be an accelerator versus the traditional grip in, go do meetings and things like that. What do you think about KPIs? I want to get your perspective before I go through the other ones that I have related to the effectiveness and efficiencies related to digital content.
It really depends on how mature my customer is already from a digital standpoint, and then also what their deal structure looks like, and then how advanced the industry is. So if you have done something and you are in a not even advanced industry, but a decent industry, you kind of have a head start. Your sales cycle is, call it 6 to 12 months. We really focus on revenue. It's, hey, how many inbound opportunities do we have? I can tell you other indicators that we look at from a marketing standpoint, but all of those KPIs that we measure in the beginning are just bridges to where we really want to get to, which is ultimately revenue. And the way we look at revenue is marketing sourced revenue. Now, I've experienced in our space that it's that still only tells part of the story, because you have a lot of people where they aren't going to convert on your website. Like I tell them, we're not trying to convert multi-million-dollar construction or engineering projects through a website. We're just not. There are some markets where you can do that. And there are some markets, even in the construction engineering space, where we have had success for people coming through that. But what we've seen a lot more is someone reaches out to someone that you've put forward as a thought leader, or they know someone already inside of this company, and then they reference your content. So we focus on those actual metrics. We focus on, frequency and reach are the two big ones. Everyone talks about engagement. Engagement is important, but like my TikTok, I tell her I get great engagement on TikTok. I'm not really sure if I'm going to have, the 100 kids in India and Africa that consume my content, if they're going to become customers. So great, you have good engagement, you have good reach, but what does that mean? So we focus on frequency and reach, because what that tells us is how many times are you posting, right? Your frequency, not the ad frequency. That's a whole different thing when you get into paid media, but how frequent are you posting? What does that reach look like? And then as time goes on, you can start to think more about engagement. But from there, we start to tell people like, hey, what's it like when you go to a conference? Do people recognize you? Do people you didn't know before recognize you? Are people messaging you through LinkedIn and saying, hey, I want to talk to you about this opportunity, even though it might not be the right opportunity? Like, let's measure all that stuff that isn't actually measurable, but that's what really counts, right? When someone screenshots something that I posted and they send it to somebody and then they reach out to me, how do you measure that? That's not a KPI, but that's a business result that we care about. So it's having that right mix of the KPIs you talked about, which are very important, but figuring out like, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to drive employee retention, employee engagement, employee attraction? Then we start to look at how many people are applying for jobs. If it's revenue, how many people are we getting through the website? And then how can we connect those anecdotal things that are happening as well?
Yeah, I like your KPIs. In fact, I'm not going to even go over the ones that I had written down, because your KPIs are perfect. They're right on the money. The thing that I point out to a lot of people that I have, talked to is that, to your point, you talk about the website. Website is not an end all be all. There are other ways to generate leads and get activity going on. And that could be doing virtual webinars. I know a lot of people will do integration where they're doing targeted. Maybe you're doing something related in the engineering hemisphere where you're focusing on engineers. That's an opportunity to engage and then also convert them into sales opportunities. If not, they're going to consume your content, because when they attend your event and you're providing a webinar, they are really looking for that type of content ongoing. So once you capture them, again, that's a good opportunity for future market activity and work with them as well. The other thing is the combination, as you put. We get back into the physical conferences. Conferences are not going to go away. Most are going to be blended, where you have a virtual and also the physical. And sometimes probably what you'll see is going to be more localized, specialized type of conferences, micro conferences that might happen in regions or cities, or around certain activity events that might happen in different industries. In kind of moving on to our last topic I wanted to cover with you, advantages of sales and marketing alignment for businesses. B2B firms, that have tightly aligned sales and marketing functions, from the statistics, they achieved 24% faster 3-year revenue growth and 27% a faster 3-year profit growth. And that comes from Serious Decisions. Cuphost stated that 65% of sales representatives say they can find content to send to their prospects. So there's still a wide gap when you look at the content that's available, that's developed by a company, by an organization. What are some of the steps that you would recommend a business, small, medium, take when it comes to becoming a content creator or expanding their content?
Start small and focused. People try and do too much at once, and the reality is you can have single platform success. If you think, I'll give an employee example. I was fortunate to have the president of Turner Mining on my podcast, Turner Mining Group, Keaton Turner, and he talked about how he built almost all of his employee acquisition strategy on Instagram, all on Instagram. His customer acquisition strategy, all on LinkedIn. So if you're a small or medium-sized business, I think you have to ask yourself, what are the real-world results we're trying to drive? I think you did a good job there of mentioning the real-world stuff. That's another thing I tell people. This digital stuff doesn't work if you don't convert it to in-person. People still want to buy from a person. People still want to talk to somebody. They just want to talk to them at a different point in the sales process than they previously have. And so I think that's a real opportunity for people to look at, hey, do I want to attract employees? Do I want to try and increase my bottom line? Do I want to try and enter a new market? So if I want to try and attract employees, where are your employees spending time? Your potential employees. Can you create content that talks about why someone should come work for you? Not about how great your company is, why it's good for the employee. Yeah, that's another thing with digital I think people really miss the mark on. No one cares about what you do. They care about how it affects them. And in digital, there's a lot of opportunity for them to consume content. So if it's not immediately relevant to them, they don't care. So you have the employee side. Then if you're talking about bottom line stuff, which I think you did a good job of articulating, just look at the sales process. You can do simple math. If you have 10 salespeople or you have 2 salespeople, let's say you have 2 salespeople, you have them drive around all week. How many customers can they contact? And how much that you talked about during that hour-long lunch and learn do the customers retain? And how much did that cost? And then look at how much it would cost to produce content and reach a similar audience. And ask yourself, what's the best way to spend those BD dollars? If I was starting, which I am, starting an organization right now, I'm not even hiring business development. I'm going to do business development for the longest time because we have inbound opportunities coming in. Yeah. Eventually, we'll hire business development, but I'm not going to hire a team of BD folks. I'm going to start on content and then have my BD team closing deals, working with customers that already know about us and want to buy from us. And then if you're talking about entering a new market, it's you can look at where those potential customers spend time, where the gaps are in the market, and then think about what you do that's unique and you're offering in that market, and then start to produce content about how you can help those specific customers. So if I can back up again, it's business objective, figure out where your customers are, figure out where your target audience spends time, what they want to consume, and then get really consistent and then focus on quality as time goes on, because you'll get conversations from customers. And as you know, with your podcast, you just have to keep going. Most people, even people I see with good strategies, they quit before it really gets started. I've unfortunately seen that too, where it's like, wow, you were really onto something, and you look in the data and it's like you were really close. You pulled the plug too soon.
Yeah, it really comes down to you want to do due diligence, have a solid strategy, a plan, and you need to make sure that you stay committed to it. And that's really the key important aspect of really all that you're talking about. You really need to stay focused on it, because if you plan it out right, it's going to work out. You just have to make sure that you do put the time in, and then also too, you reassess as things change, because we all know business can change day to day. Situations can happen. How many companies really had planned for 2020 and 2021 to be what it was? But those that were quick and nimble and adaptable, amazing results, and some companies benefited during the pandemic and the lockdown because of the way we changed our way of doing business, and also too our patterns of lifestyle that changed during the last 2 years as well. So it's always good to look for change when it happens, but also sometimes you need to be able to be quickly reactive to chaos that might ensue because of whatever might be going on in the world or in the business climate.
If I may, Jim,
yes,
real
please.
quick, I just want to add to what you said, because I think you brought up a good point about how much things have changed the last 2 years. And so people are experiencing that and feeling that. But if you look at buyer trends pre-pandemic, these things were already happening. It was just a big push that happened during the pandemic. There was a Gartner survey of 750 B2B customer stakeholders for complex solutions, and they asked them how they spend their time. And out of 100% of their time, they said they only spend 17% of their total buying time interacting with potential suppliers. So think about that. Your customer most likely has multiple suppliers. They have multiple business units they're responsible for. So when you divide up that 17% of the time, how much time does that leave for you, potential new customer? So if you're trying to engage them those old ways, they were telling you pre-pandemic, we don't want that. Now, post-pandemic, to your point, the companies that have embraced it are doing really well. They've lowered their customer acquisition cost, and they have more work than they know what they can do with, because they're communicating to the market well.
Very good. Matthew, what an awesome conversation we've had. Is there anything, in closing this episode out, is there anything we didn't talk about you would want to leave with the viewers?
No, I think I just once again thank you for letting me be a guest here on the Build Out live stream. I was excited about the opportunity. If anyone is interested in talking to me about an actual business opportunity, just if they want to connect with me and understand what's in my mind, I love connecting with people. I love mentorship. I do a lot of volunteer work around there, and I'm obviously really passionate about sales and marketing in the professional services space. So if you are interested in what I have to say, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Feel free to shoot me a message. And if you're listening to what I'm saying and it's resonating with you, please consider reaching out to me. I'd love to have a conversation.
Perfect. Everyone, please check out Matthew. Take a look at his company and all that he does in the industries that he does work in. So, Matthew, thank you so much and have a great day.
You too. Thanks, Jim.
I hope you found value with today's Build Out broadcast. Make sure you connect with Jim on LinkedIn and subscribe to his YouTube channel. This way you'll be notified on new live streams and when new content is released. Please give today's broadcast a like and share with your connections and colleagues. Thanks for watching, and please visit buildoutproductions.com for additional content and to join the mailing list so you can keep updated on other streams and quality content from the creators on the Build Out Productions team.